Hi, I'm Brent Stafford, and this is Reg Watch by RegulatorWatch.com. Cost and competency, two words that cut to the heart of the impact a monopoly can have when dominating a market. Lack of competition often leads to unjustified price increases, and with no checks and balances, to lower quality product. One such monopoly may be affecting Canadian consumers of financial services, and you can thank IIROC, the National Financial Services Regulator, for granting that monopoly. The Investment Industry Regulatory Organization, or IIROC, sets industry standards and enforces the rules governing the conduct of over 185 brokerage and investment firms in Canada, including their representatives and advisors. The first step in meeting IIROC standards for almost everyone that works in the financial services sector is the requirement to pass the Canadian Securities course. And thanks to IIROC, there's only one place to do that, at the CSI. The Canadian Securities Institute holds the monopoly contract for the Canadian Securities course. It's the sole provider for course materials, classes, and to administer the exam. For IIROC, the CSI might as well be family, as it was started 45 years ago by its predecessor, the Investment Dealers Association. In 2002, it was converted to a for-profit corporation, and in 2005, it was sold off to a private equity fund. Just 5 years later, the U.S. credit rating agency Moody's scooped up the CSI for a whopping $155 million. Under the deal, Moody's inherited the CSI's monopoly contract, which expires in January 2016. The CSI is not without its detractors. In 2014, IIROC reached out to stakeholders for input into how it might reform the system, including the option of moving to a multiple provider model following the expiration of the CSI's exclusive contract. 14 detailed submissions came in, and those here in green all supported opening up the education delivery component to competition. The Investment Industry Association of Canada, or IIAC, which represents the investment firms Canadians trust most to manage their money, put a fine point on the CSI matter. In its submission to IIROC, it states the CSI is overcharging and under-delivering for its members. It calls on IIROC to end the CSI monopoly and create competition among alternate course providers, leading to improvements in the quality of course materials and more competitive pricing. And in a damning conclusion, the Investment Industry Association states the CSI has difficulty in keeping pace with content and continuing education changes, entrance requirements, individual learning requirements, and new product offerings. It strongly believes that competition will drive innovation and efficiency, which cannot be said for the current model, which is exclusive to the CSI. With numerous complaints in hand regarding CSI competency and cost, and with strong arguments made in favor of open competition, what did IIROC do? It renewed the CSI single provider contract until 2020. Addressing cost concerns, it capped CSI price increases at 1.75% per year, and to beef up quality, the regulator is instituting more onerous update and revision obligations. RegulatorWatch.com reached out to IIROC for comment, and in an email response, Doug Harris, IIROC General Counsel, told us that in discussions IIROC had with various course providers, IIROC believes that under a multiple provider model, it would be difficult to achieve cost efficiencies and ensure high quality of content where there is low enrollment in courses. Harris goes on to tell us that a single service provider chosen through a transparent and competitive procurement process best serves the public interest at this time. You heard the word competitive. Yes, IIROC is allowing for some competition. In 2020, when the new CSI contract is up, there will be competitive bidding, but only for the opportunity to replace the CSI as the sole provider. Now, is this the type of competition stakeholders were demanding? And what's been the response to the specifics of the new proficiency model? RegulatorWatch.com reached out to stakeholders, and here's a cross-section of what we found out. Keith, the Canadian Institute of Financial Planning has been around for almost as long as the CSI. What's your reaction to IIROC's decision?
Well, for 17 years, we've been looking at this issue. I've been on this file for 17 years trying to improve the education, break a monopoly, that is, the standards. and examination standards and proficiency standards should be set by a regulator, and then they should be delivered by people who know how to deliver education that meet those standards.
In support of its decision, Keith, IROC is basically saying there is no economies of scale to support low enrollment courses across multiple providers. Is there some truth to that?
That's totally wrong. I mean, most of the education providers have scale, and a lot of the content is not totally unique to securities industry. A lot of our courses already have a lot of things at IROC, and we actually provide continuing education in IROC, and a lot of the other providers have content. It's just a matter of repositioning it. And they have economies of scale because they have other businesses, and for their ability to provide some loss leaders, because there's a few low enrollment courses, is quite economically viable.
Keith, what's the impact for consumers?
The problem with the CSI model, it's costly and has lower quality than it should. And ultimately, the people who take those courses are not giving the best advice from proficiency to the end consumer, because they're just not getting the right materials. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying everything's bad. Don't misquote me on that, please. I'm saying it could be better, and why not be better? And I think when you just give someone an exclusive contract and you don't open it up to competition, then you're not getting the very best that you could.
Inigo, you're with the CFA, the gold standard designation for financial analysts. What were the Institute's recommendations to IROC?
Well, what we were recommending is to adopt a more open model. So it would allow multiple providers to operate within the licensing market. Instead of having just CSI, to allow for other providers to be able to contribute in the licensing of professionals.
And why is that important?
Well, because we think it's important that, competition always brings benefits in terms of quality and depth and breadth of content. So if you have other providers competing against each other, there's always a few of them who are going to try to excel.
Inigo, there were some positive developments in IROC's decision in regards to the CFA. What were they?
IROC is considering extending recognition to CFA Level 1 as an equivalent to the Canadian Securities course. So people will have a choice when it comes to licensing, if they approve it.
Callum, you're in charge of regulated professions at Oliver Publishing, a 30-year provider of financial education. What was your reaction to IROC's decision?
I was stunned. And the reason is that one doesn't ordinarily engage in public consultation around the potential for doing something like introducing competition unless you're actually intending to seriously explore those options. To turn around and actually state that they're not only going to maintain the monopoly, but they are going to extend it even further after this term. They're planning on offering another sole source contract is extraordinary.
But what about IROC's claim that the market is too small to support multiple providers?
You should not grant monopoly where it's being used to cross-subsidize other services or products. It's actually contrary to most of the agreements that Canada and Ontario have signed to discourage monopoly and sole source contracting. What we want is a chance to get the same official accreditation that the CSI has, and we're quite happy to compete with them.
Lori, the Smarten Up Institute delivers a wide range of courses, including advanced financial training. Do you see any positives in IROC's new proficiency model?
The consultation has occurred, and we were encouraged that, we ourselves as the Smarten Up Institute were encouraged that IROC actually engaged in any consultation, and we were happy to contribute. We also see that the possibility of recognition of the non-CSI, like the CFA designation, as well as the promise to develop a proficiency standard independent of the CSI, it does show some desire for improvement. However, real competition is unlikely.
So you're skeptical then about the prospects for a new provider in 2020?
We are skeptical that a new vendor could unseat the CSI in 2020 through the new competitive bidding process.
Well, that's it for this edition of Reg Watch. Before you head off, please like us on Facebook and don't forget to follow us on Twitter. For RegulatorWatch.com, I'm Brent Stafford.